Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepless Scientist, a quiet place in the cosmos where your thoughts can unwind, and knowledge becomes a soft lullaby for the night. Tonight's journey will take us into the strange and beautiful territory of dreaming, and the gentle question of whether your nightly adventures are simply stories, or gateways to something deeper, something that stretches beyond the edges of waking life. But before you settle in and get cozy, I'd love if you could take a moment to like this video and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy these calm explorations. And when you're ready, feel free to leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always a quiet delight to see the places we gather from. Cities lit by evening lamps, countryside homes wrapped in night mist, small bedrooms glowing softly beneath warm blankets, all chiming in from their own corners of time. If you'd like, dim the lights just a little, or turn on a gentle fan to give the room a background hum. Let your shoulders loosen, your breath soften. And if your mind begins to drift at any point, that's perfectly fine. Dreams themselves drift. They wander. They step from one moment into another without always asking permission. We'll do the same tonight, letting the story unfold in its own calm way. When you're ready, let's begin our quiet journey into dreams and into the subtle spaces where consciousness may be exploring other realities. When you close your eyes at night, something quiet and astonishing begins. Your waking world, the room, the ceiling, the familiar weight of your blankets, slowly fades into the background. And in its place, another world rises. Sometimes it arrives gently, like a slow fog drifting through a valley. Other times it appears suddenly, as if you've stepped through an unseen doorway, a street you've never walked, a house you've never lived in, a voice speaking your name in a place you don't remember travelling to. And yet, in the dream, you don't question it. You accept it. Fully, naturally, as though you've always been there. Many people describe this feeling, waking from a dream with the lingering sense that they were not simply imagining but visiting, that the dream had a geography of its own, a certain temperature in the air, a rhythm to the way the light moved, a presence, indefinable but unmistakable. For thousands of years, humans have wondered why dreams feel like this. Ancient shamans believed the dream world was a separate realm, a place where spirits walked and messages could be found. Greek philosophers wondered whether the dream world might actually be more real than waking life, because it is experienced so vividly and without interruption. In Eastern traditions, dreams were sometimes seen as glimpses of parallel existences, threads of reality that the soul wandered through while the body rested. And now, in our modern age, with glowing screens and humming satellites and machines that can see inside the working brain, the question still persists, perhaps more strongly than ever. What exactly happens when we dream? And why does it feel so much like travelling to another world? Science gives us part of the answer. As your body relaxes into sleep, the senses begin to dim. Sight, sound, touch. These quiet themselves like lanterns being slowly lowered. But inside the mind, the opposite happens. Neurons begin to shimmer with activity. The brain, freed from the responsibility of navigating the outside world, turns inward, and what it creates is not silence, but scenery, not emptiness, but experience. The dream does not come to you as thought, it comes as place. You stand in a hallway. You walk into a room, you hear the rustle of leaves in a forest that does not exist, except within the intricate folds of your own consciousness. And somehow, this forest feels as real as the one you walk through on a childhood field trip. The brain builds the scene with such devotion that when you look around, for a moment you forget that your physical body is lying peacefully in a bed, breathing softly in the dark. This ability to generate a full sensory world without any input is one of the strangest things the human mind can do. When you're awake, everything you see and hear relies on signals from the outside. But in a dream, the brain gently closes the gates to the external world. It builds its own light, its own sounds, its own weather, as if creating a small universe each night, crafted from memory, imagination, and something more elusive. You may have noticed how certain dreams feel familiar even though you've never been in that place before. A street that reminds you of childhood, though no house matches your memories exactly. A cafe where you've never eaten, yet you somehow know where the back door leads. Dream researchers often describe this as the blending of memory fragments, little pieces of your life stitched together into a new landscape. But there is something poetic about this blend, something that feels deeper than simple recollection, as though the dream is exploring a version of reality adjacent to your own, built from the same materials but arranged in a different pattern. Sometimes upon waking you might still feel the emotional pulse of the dream world, the echo of a conversation, the trace of a journey, the sense that something meaningful happened somewhere just a breath away. And even though the logic of the dream dissolves as the morning brightens, like watercolour fading in the sun, the feeling remains. A quiet whisper that you were, in some sense, elsewhere. This sensation doesn't need scientific proof to feel true. It is older than language, older than cities. Humans have been dreaming for as long as humans have existed, and every night the dream world reopens its doors. Every night you step into a realm crafted by your own consciousness, yet strangely foreign to your waking identity. Tonight, we'll wander through that realm together, slowly, gently. We'll explore how the brain builds these inner worlds, why consciousness behaves so differently in them, and whether these nightly journeys are simply private stories or something that brushes against the edges of other realities. Where those edges lead, we'll continue to discover as the night deepens. There's a moment in nearly every dream when you find yourself already inside the story, as if you stepped onto a moving train without remembering how you boarded. You might be standing in a kitchen, a forest, an airport, a quiet beach, or a place that doesn't resemble any location you've ever known. And yet, there you are, living inside it with complete confidence. You don't wonder how you arrived. You don't question the furniture or the sky or the strangers who greet you like an old friend. The dream begins not with an introduction, but with immersion. It doesn't ask permission. It simply becomes the world around you, fully formed, waiting for you to move through it. This is one of the most remarkable qualities of dreaming. It feels like entering a place, not thinking about a place, not imagining a place, entering one. You look down and see your hands moving. You walk forward and feel the ground shift beneath your feet. The air has a temperature. The colours have weight, and the moment you begin to act inside this world, it reacts to you. Doors open, paths appear, people turn toward you with familiarity, even when you've never met them in waking life. It is as though the dream has its own physics, its own pace, its own subtle logic that you accept without hesitation. Scientists and philosophers have long noticed this phenomenon. When we picture something in waking life, say a beach or a mountain or a friend we haven't seen in years, we usually know we're imagining it. The colours may be faint, the details incomplete, the edges of the thought remain translucent, and the world around us remains clearly separate. But in a dream, that boundary dissolves. The imagined becomes experiential. The internal becomes external. The mind creates a surrounding reality so convincingly that it becomes the stage upon which you live an entire episode of existence. And what's most fascinating is that your brain does this while receiving almost no sensory input from the outside. In waking life, everything you see is built from signals, Light entering your eyes, sound vibrating through your ears, touch carried through tiny receptors in your skin. These signals travel through specialized pathways in the brain, weaving together into the seamless world you experience each morning when you rise. But in dreaming, especially in the vivid, swirling landscapes of deep, REM sleep, the brain gently closes the gates to the external world. It quiets the senses and relies almost entirely on internal activity. With the outer world dimmed, your mind begins to paint with its own palette, constructing scenes that feel solid, spacious, and profoundly real. To understand why dreams feel like places rather than thoughts, imagine the mind as an artist in a quiet studio. When the noise of the day fades, the artist finally has space to spread out the memories gathered from years of living. The streets you've walked, the classrooms you sat in, the faces of both strangers and loved ones, fragments of conversations, weather from forgotten afternoons, colours from childhood toys. In the stillness of sleep, the mind reaches into this archive and weaves new combinations. It rearranges old hallways into new buildings. It blends the scent of one city with the skyline of another. It merges yesterday's argument with a cafe you visited a decade ago. And though the stitching is seamless, the result is entirely new. A reality that has never existed before and will never exist again in quite the same way. This is why dreams can feel familiar and foreign at the same time. You may walk through a corridor that feels unmistakably like your school, but halfway down it opens into a greenhouse filled with humidity and the soft glow of lanterns. Your childhood bedroom might appear, but the window looks out onto an ocean you've never seen. Dreams assemble the world in ways that waking life never allows. They create spaces where memory and imagination coexist, forming landscapes that follow your intuition rather than physical law. And yet, there is a deeper mystery. When you are inside the dream, it doesn't feel like your mind is inventing these places. It feels as though you are discovering them, as though the dream world is waiting for you, just beyond a thin veil, ready to be explored. Some dream researchers refer to this as the felt presence of dreaming, the sense that the dream environment has autonomy, even intention, that it moves with you, answers you, shifts around you, and sometimes even surprises you with details you cannot explain. It is this quality, the feeling of discovery, that makes dreams feel like alternate realities rather than mental sketches. You can walk into a dream room you've never imagined before and find it fully decorated. Paintings on the walls, books on the shelves, a cup of tea cooling on a small wooden table. The mind does not merely gesture at these objects, it renders them. You perceive them with the same sensory confidence you bring to waking life. And even though no physical light touches your eyes and no vibrations reach your ears, you see and hear and feel as though you are inside a world with its own structure. This ability of the brain to generate a fully immersive environment without external input has led some neuroscientists to describe dreaming as internal virtual reality. Not virtual in the digital sense, but virtual in the traditional sense. Something that feels real, that behaves real, yet arises entirely from within. The mind becomes both storyteller and landscape, both architect and traveller. And because the dream responds to your emotions, your memories, and the currents of your inner life, it often reveals aspects of yourself that waking awareness overlooks. Sometimes dreams offer a quiet form of insight. They may present a fear wrapped in symbolic clothing, or echo an unresolved question through shifting scenes. Other times they simply invite you into a peaceful moment, a gentle walk through a meadow that never existed, or a conversation with someone you miss. Whatever the dream chooses, it is experienced not as thought, but as reality. For the duration of the dream, you live inside a world that feels complete. And when you wake, The fading of that world can feel like leaving a place behind, a place you cannot return to except through memory. But perhaps that is part of the dream's beauty, that fleeting glimpse of another realm your mind created just for you, a realm that feels as distant and delicate as the last stars fading before dawn. As you drift towards sleep, the world doesn't disappear all at once. It softens, the edges blur, the details loosen, and the familiar structure of waking life slowly begins to melt into something quieter, something more fluid. Before dreams can rise, the mind must perform a small but remarkable act. It gently closes the door to the external world, and it does so not with abruptness, but with the tender precision of someone dimming the lights in a room where another person is resting. You've probably felt this transition before, the moment when your thoughts stop following a straight line, when words lose their crispness, when images appear seemingly by themselves. It begins in the space between wakefulness and sleep, when the senses grow drowsy. The hum of the fan becomes softer, the glow of the room fades, the weight of the blanket pulls you down like a slow tide. Yet, even as your body relaxes, your mind continues to work in its own quiet way. It starts to shape the inner landscape that will soon become a dream. To understand this shift, imagine the mind as a house with many windows. When you're awake, all the windows are open. Light streams in, sounds drift through. Your attention flows outward, constantly receiving information. But when you fall asleep, the mind begins to close those windows one by one. Not violently, not suddenly, but in a sequence so gentle you hardly notice it. First comes the closing of the window of sight. The room dims even with your eyes closed. Then sound becomes less sharp. Touch loses its crispness. Smells and tastes withdraw into the background. And in the stillness, with all the windows nearly shut, the house becomes quiet enough for another world to unfold inside it. This gradual shutting out of the senses allows the brain to enter a state where it no longer needs the outside world to create experience. Instead, it begins to rely almost entirely on its own internal activity. The brain is never truly silent, even in deep sleep. It hums with electricity, with memory, with imagination, with the echoes of past days and forgotten seasons. When the sensory gates close, those internal patterns become free to express themselves without interference. They weave together into images, sounds, and sensations, not as memories, but as living scenes. If we could watch the brain during this transition, we would see waves of activity passing through different regions in rhythmic pulses. These waves are often described scientifically with names like theta or delta, but the feeling of them is much more poetic than the terminology suggests. Imagine gentle currents moving through a lake on a still evening, or the slow rise and fall of lantern light in a quiet room. These waves signal a shift from the fast, outward-facing attention of wakefulness to the slow, inward-facing awareness of sleep. During certain stages, especially the deep, restorative one often associated with the slowest waves, your mind becomes like a darkened theatre. The stage is empty, the lights are low, and the world is quiet. But as you drift upward into a phase of sleep where the brain becomes lively again, something closer to a dream rehearsal, the theatre begins to glow. Soft images appear, not yet stable, like sketches in the air. And then, as you move into the stage that supports vivid dreaming, the kind of sleep where your eyes dart beneath your eyelids, the inner theatre becomes fully illuminated. The dream begins its performance. What makes this process so extraordinary is that the dream world arises not from the outside, but from within. If waking life is a conversation between you and the environment, dreaming is a soliloquy, a story told inwardly, using only the mind's own voice. And yet it feels so much like a dialogue, because the brain responds to itself in a way that mirrors how it responds to the physical world. When you reach out to touch something in a dream, the brain activates the same pathways that would light up if you touch something in waking life. When you hear a voice, the auditory regions respond as though actual sound waves were striking your ears. When you run, the areas related to motion spring into life, even though your physical body remains still, protected by a natural paralysis that keeps you safe while your dream self moves freely. This is why the experience of dreaming can feel as rich as reality. Your brain isn't pretending, it's performing. It's creating sensations from the inside out, using the same systems that navigate the real world each day. The only difference is that the world it creates in sleep doesn't have to follow physical rules. Time can stretch or shrink. Distances can fold. Gravity can feel optional. People can appear with perfect emotional clarity, even when their faces blur. It's as though the brain, free from the constraints of sensory input, begins to explore what experience might look like if it was shaped entirely by inner rhythms, inner memories, and inner needs. And there's something beautiful in that freedom. When the door to the external world is closed, the mind can wander through territories that waking life rarely allows. It can replay old joys, revisit old fears, or imagine new possibilities. It can stitch together fragments of memory into places that exist only within the soft architecture of the dream. It can create stories that feel meaningful even when they don't quite make sense. Dreams in this way are not random at all. They're expressions of the mind's quiet creativity. Sometimes, as you drift into this state, you might notice small dream-like impressions appearing even before sleep fully arrives. A flash of a landscape, a face you haven't thought about in years, a feeling of floating. These are early signs of the sensory gate closing. They are like faint whispers from the dream world announcing that it is preparing to open. And then, with a gentle surrender, you step inside. This entire process, from the dimming of the senses to the rise of the inner reality, happens every night, whether you notice it or not. It is one of the most natural transitions we experience, yet one of the most mysterious. The moment your brain shuts the door to the outside, it opens another door inward, one that leads to landscapes, stories, and alternate realities crafted entirely within the depths of your own consciousness. There is a peculiar calmness inside most dreams, a kind of quiet acceptance that settles over everything. You might find yourself standing in a city made of glass, or floating gently above a field of tall grass, or speaking with someone who's been gone for years. Yet in the dream, you do not stop to ask, how is this possible? Your mind simply moves with the moment, absorbing every detail, as if it belongs exactly where it is. You don't challenge the strange architecture, the shifting sky, or the sudden changes in storyline. Instead, you drift through the dream with a confidence that would never exist if these things happened while you were awake. This unquestioning presence is one of the great puzzles of dreaming. Why do we accept the impossible so easily? Why does the mind allow such odd combinations? An office meeting that turns into a forest expedition, a childhood friend appearing at your adult workplace, a bicycle that transforms into a luminescent boat without ever signaling that something is off? To explore this, imagine the sense of self you carry during the day. In waking life, there's a steady voice inside you that monitors your surroundings. It comments, evaluates, predicts. It checks for danger, for logic, for continuity. It keeps the world coherent. You use it constantly, When you read a sign, make a plan, or even notice an inconsistency in someone's story, this inner narrator acts like a quiet, vigilant guardian. But during dreaming, that guardian becomes softer, quieter, and sometimes nearly silent. It's not entirely gone, but it watches from a distance, allowing the rest of the mind to wander freely. The emotional centers rise in volume. The visual centers glow with heightened activity, and the storytelling parts of the brain weave intricate scenes. Meanwhile, the part of your mind that would normally say, "Wait, that doesn't make sense," steps aside. It gives the dream permission to unfold without scrutiny. This peaceful surrender is not a flaw, it's a kind of gift. It allows you to explore experiences without the strict constraints of logic. Imagine trying to paint while someone constantly checks your brush strokes. Creativity becomes timid, but if that overseer steps back, the hand moves more freely. Dreams operate in that freedom. They let the mind roam without correction, without the constant need for reality to obey consistent rules. This is why time behaves strangely in dreams. Hours might pass in a heartbeat, or a brief moment may stretch into something that feels endless. The dream world doesn't rely on the precise ticking of seconds. It flows according to emotional rhythm. Moments expand when they're heavy with feeling and collapse quickly when they're light or unstable. It is as if time in dreams is woven from mood rather than measurement. Memory also behaves differently. You may meet someone in a dream and feel as though you've known them forever, even if you've never seen any version of them before. Or you may walk into a building and instantly understand where every hallway leads, even though the structure has no counterpart in waking life. The dream gives you a sense of familiarity, of history, of belonging, even without providing any details. It supplies the emotional truth of a memory without needing its factual roots. Similarly, the physical laws of the dream are more like gentle guidelines. Gravity might behave in a softened way, allowing you to float rather than fall. Doors might open into landscapes instead of rooms. A simple thought, like wanting to be somewhere else, may cause the entire scene to shift around you. You don't question these transformations. Instead, you experience them as though they are perfectly natural. And in the dream, they are. Another reason dreams feel unquestioned is that they tend to place you in the middle of the scene, already in motion. You don't always get a beginning. You don't receive context or explanation. You start inside the moment, like a character walking into a play long after the opening act. By the time you realize where you are, the dream has already given you a role. You're simply participating. It is much harder to question a world when you enter it mid-sentence. There's also a softness to dream perception. You may notice details, but not all at once. The world fills itself in gently, focusing on what matters most in that emotional instant. If you're standing in a field, the dream might render the grass perfectly, while the sky remains simple. If you speak to someone, their expression becomes vivid, but the background behind them is faint. This selective rendering gives the dream a sense of purpose, as though it is directing your attention toward what you need to feel, rather than what you need to analyze. And then there is the quality of dream emotion, deep, immediate, and unquestioned. Emotions in dreams are not filtered. They appear fully formed, often stronger than they might feel during the day. You might wake with your heart pounding, or with a feeling of love so intense it lingers long after the scene fades. Because emotions in dreams feel so real, they anchor the story. The emotional truth overrides logical inconsistency. The dream doesn't have to make sense, it just has to feel meaningful in that moment. All of these elements combine to create a state where you are immersed, responsive, alert in a quiet way but not analytical. You are present without being skeptical. You are aware without being critical. It is a rare state of consciousness. one that is open enough to explore strange possibilities, but calm enough not to resist them. And perhaps that is why dreams leave such powerful impressions. Even when they are strange, they feel lived. Even when they are impossible, they feel true. You inhabit them with the fullness of your being, without the protective shell of waking logic. For a brief time each night, you enter a world shaped not by rules, but by imagination, memory, and emotion. In this state, reality becomes flexible, fluid, and instead of questioning it, you drift through it with a kind of grace that waking life rarely grants. The dream world, in its tender strangeness, becomes a place where you simply are, without needing to know how or why. There's a particular kind of dream many people describe, a dream where you find yourself walking through a neighbourhood that feels both strangely familiar and entirely new. The street seems like one you might have visited long ago, yet the houses have rearranged themselves, shifted in shape or colour, or grown new staircases you don't remember. Maybe a childhood friend appears, greeting you as though no time has passed, even though the last time you saw them was in another decade. Or you step into a room that feels like home, but the furniture is placed in ways that never existed in waking life. In dreams, familiarity and invention blend into something delicate and uncanny, the way watercolour paints blend at their edges. This blending is not an accident. It is the work of a mind that has temporarily turned inward, using memory not as a record, but as a palette. Each night when you fall asleep and the senses turn down their volume, your brain begins to sift quietly through the vast archive of your experiences. It does not do so with the intention of recalling exact moments. Instead, it takes fragments, textures of places, glimpses of faces, the outline of a street, the tone of a voice, the warmth of a summer afternoon you've forgotten, and allows them to drift together into new combinations. These fragments don't reassemble into perfect replicas of your past. They merge into dream worlds that are built the way artists build landscapes, not from photographs, but from impressions. Imagine your memory as a library where the books have loosened on their shelves. When sleep arrives, a gentle breeze moves through the aisles. Pages turn on their own. Passages from different chapters brush together, forming new stories. A scene from your early school days brushes against a moment from yesterday's walk. A city you visited once merges with a store you see every week. The mind collects these pieces like scattered puzzle tiles and fits them into new configurations, ones that don't match reality, yet feel like they belong to some parallel version of it. This is one reason dreams feel like worlds rather than thoughts. Memory, when woven together in this loose, intuitive way, creates a map, a geography with implied history, even if none actually exists. You don't need to remember how you got to the dream house or when it was built. The dream supplies a feeling that you've been there before, even if the house was created moments ago by your sleeping mind. This sense of familiarity is powerful. It gives the dream world a kind of gravity, as if it could anchor you within it. But memory is only one ingredient in the construction of dream worlds. The other is imagination, untethered, unrestrained, and unfiltered by the demands of the waking environment. In daytime life, your imagination is constantly shaped and corrected by your senses. If you imagine a forest, your eyes correct it. If you imagine a river flowing uphill, your understanding of physics intervenes. The world around you holds the imagination in place, like a hand resting gently but firmly on your shoulder. In dreams, that hand lifts away. Without the intervention of sight, sound, and bodily sensation, imagination rises into a fuller form. It paints landscapes that defy the restrictions of gravity and logic. It builds rooms that grow or shrink without explanation. It changes seasons in an instant. It bends the trajectory of time. And because the inner narrator, the one who normally checks for consistency, is quiet, the imagination is free to explore vast territories without being questioned. This freedom creates dream worlds that feel like alternate realities rather than random hallucinations. They have structure, not chaos. They have atmosphere, not noise. The mind builds them with the same circuits that construct your waking experience, activating the same emotional and perceptual systems. In a sense, it uses the very tools of reality to shape unreality. The result is a space that feels not like an invention, but like a neighbouring dimension. Sometimes dreams even give you a sense of exploring a place that continues outside your view. If you walk through a dream city, you might feel certain that other streets exist beyond the ones you can see, as though the dream world extends like a map with territories you've yet to visit. This impression arises because your brain doesn't generate every detail at once. It creates only what you focus on, filling in the rest with the sense of possibility. It's the same way a painter might leave parts of a canvas unpainted, trusting the viewer's mind to finish the picture. There is also something profoundly meaningful in how dreams blend memory and imagination. When you revisit a place from your past in a dream, like your old home or a childhood classroom, it often looks exactly right in some elements and unmistakably wrong in others. A window might be missing, the walls might be the wrong colour, a door might lead somewhere new. This isn't a mistake. It's the mind revealing how memory truly works, not as perfect storage, but as reconstruction. Dreams highlight this truth by rearranging the pieces openly, showing you the architecture of your own remembering. These rearranged places can evoke emotions that feel deeper than the dream itself. Walking through a half-remembered street might bring a sense of nostalgia, even if the details are all invented. Hearing a voice you loved years ago might fill your heart with warmth, even if the conversation makes no sense. Dreams allow emotions to inhabit forms they could not take in waking life. They translate feelings into landscapes, into rooms, into imagined cities built from your inner history. And sometimes, the dream world goes even further. It may create entirely new environments, places that feel real despite having no connection to your past. A library with endless staircases, a moonlit forest filled with glowing stones, a train station suspended above clouds. When these places appear, they feel like discoveries, not inventions. Many people describe waking from such dreams with an odd sense of longing, as if they had visited a place that continues existing somewhere beyond reach. This sensation can be so vivid that it lingers through the day, a quiet reminder that your mind is capable of generating realities that resonate emotionally, even when they don't correspond to anything you've seen. In a way, the dream becomes a mirror, showing not the world outside but the world inside, reassembled into shapes and stories you can wander through. That is the magic of dreams as virtual worlds. They are built from the familiar and the unknown, from memory and possibility, from fragments that belong to you and pieces that seem to have appeared from nowhere. They are landscapes shaped by your experiences but not limited by them. They are worlds adjacent to your own, connected not through physical space but through consciousness. There is a quiet intelligence to dreaming, a kind of ancient wisdom woven into the stories that unfold each night. We often think of dreams as spontaneous fantasies, as if the mind simply wanders through random scenes without purpose. But when researchers began looking closely at the patterns shared across dreams, in cultures separated by oceans and eras, they noticed something remarkable. Dreams often simulate danger, conflict, problem-solving, social interactions, and emotional challenges with a focus that feels almost intentional. It's as if the dreaming mind is rehearsing, preparing, sharpening itself in a world that mirrors ours but operates by symbolic rules. Imagine early humans thousands upon thousands of years ago. For them, survival was a constant concern. Danger lurked at the edges of their camps. Predators in the dark, rival groups, storms, sickness, scarcity. Every day required alertness, intuition, and quick decision-making. In this environment, the brain evolved not only to respond to threats in waking life, but to anticipate them. And dreams may have been one of the ways it practiced. Many dreams contain moments of fear, being chased, falling from a height, losing control of a vehicle, drowning, being confronted by a stranger. These scenes don't feel random. They feel urgent, emotional, and vivid, as though your mind is testing your reactions. In waking life, most of us rarely face life or death situations, yet our dreams revisit scenarios of danger again and again. It's possible that this repetition is not merely a leftover habit, but an echo of evolutionary training, a rehearsal space where the mind practices recognizing and navigating threats without the real-world consequences. Picture a dream where you're running through a dark forest. Your heart races, leaves whip past your face, something unseen chases you. The dream doesn't need to name the threat. The emotion is the lesson. In that moment, your mind is reactivating the ancient circuitry that once kept your ancestors alive. The instinct to flee, the ability to navigate obstacles, the capacity to scan for safety. And when you wake, even though the danger wasn't real, your body often reacts as if you've lived through something important. Your heart might beat faster, your breath might quicken, your muscles might remember the tension. It is as though the dream has given your nervous system a practice session, a chance to strengthen itself quietly. But danger is not the only theme the dreaming mind rehearses. Social situations also appear frequently in dreams. Arguments that never happened, conversations that replay with different endings, gatherings where old faces mix with new ones, misunderstandings that resolve themselves or spiral into chaos. Social life has always been one of the most complex parts of human existence. Understanding others, reading emotions, predicting reactions. These skills can determine safety, harmony, and belonging. Dreams often create simulations where these skills are tested. You might find yourself navigating a difficult dialogue, or trying to protect someone you care about, or attempting to speak your truth in a symbolic space where emotions swell and shift. Even though the scenes may be impossible or exaggerated, the emotional core is real. Your mind is exploring the intricacies of relationships, using stories to rehearse empathy, conflict resolution, persuasion, or courage. In this sense, dreams become a kind of quiet classroom, not one with desks and chalkboards, but one where the lessons are delivered through images and feelings. The dreaming mind doesn't speak to you in words, it speaks in atmospheres, in emotions, in the logic of metaphor. And because the analytical part of the brain is softened at night, you experience these lessons without resistance, without the constant filtering and judging that daytime self-awareness imposes. Memory plays an important role here too. As you sleep, especially during the deep, slow wave phases, the brain carefully rearranges memories, organizing, cleaning, connecting them. Information is sorted, strengthened, or gently released. Later in the night, when dreams become vivid, the brain takes those reorganized memories and uses them as raw material for creative combinations. These combinations often reflect problems you've been carrying, not always the obvious ones, but the emotional knots beneath them. A dream about losing your shoes might reflect vulnerability. A dream about missing a train might echo your fear of falling behind. A dream about someone ignoring you might highlight loneliness or uncertainty. Through symbolic rehearsal, the mind processes emotional weight in ways waking thought rarely achieves, This process is not fully understood, but many scientists believe that emotional regulation during dreaming serves a protective role. It smooths the rough edges of memory. It allows difficult experiences to be softened, reframed, or integrated into your personal story. A painful moment from the day might appear in a dream, but transformed, less sharp, less overwhelming, woven into a narrative where your heart can approach it safely. It's as though the dream world wraps your emotions in a soft blanket, letting you examine them without being overwhelmed. There is also a fascinating side to dreams that deal not with fear or conflict, but with creativity. Some dreams present solutions to problems you didn't realize you were working on. A complex idea becomes clear, a melody emerges, a scientific insight surfaces. These moments often happen not because the mind is analyzing, but because the dreaming mind is free to connect distant ideas, mixing them in ways that waking thought cannot. Without the constraints of logic or the need to follow a straight path, the mind can wander into unexpected combinations, sometimes leading to breakthroughs. This rooting of dreams in ancient survival strategies and emotional processing does not diminish their sense of mystery. If anything, it deepens it. Dreams are not random splashes of imagination. They are reflections of the mind's deepest concerns crafted in symbolic language. And because they draw from memory, emotion, intuition, and imagination, they naturally begin to resemble alternate realities, spaces where your inner life is projected outward, shaped into worlds you can walk through. Consider how often you dream of searching for something, an object, a person, a destination. Or how often you dream of being unprepared, showing up late, missing something important, forgetting your lines. These themes tell us that dreams often address the fundamental tensions of human life: fear of loss, fear of failure, desire for safety, desire for connection. They are not rehearsals of external events, but rehearsals of inner states. And because the dreaming mind crafts these states into tangible scenes, they take the form of worlds that feel real because they reflect the emotional truths that shape your waking life. These dream worlds might be symbolic, but the emotions within them are genuine. And through them, your mind continues the work of evolution, adapting, preparing, learning, and healing in a realm that exists only within you. There is a fragile, luminous moment between waking and dreaming where reality loosens, but the dream has not yet fully arrived. It's a moment most people drift through without noticing, like a traveller stepping across a shallow river without looking down at the stones beneath their feet. Yet, if you pay attention, this threshold reveals itself as one of the strangest and most beautiful states of consciousness you experience each day. It is here, in the borderlands between sleep and wakefulness, that the mind briefly holds two worlds open at once. These border moments have names in science, but you don't need those names to recognize the feeling. You've experienced it many times. It might begin as a swirl of colour behind closed eyes, or the faint shape of a face that disappears the moment you try to focus. Sometimes it comes as a sound, a voice that seems to whisper from a place just beyond hearing, or a sudden jolt of imagined footsteps. Sometimes it's the sensation of sinking into your mattress, or rising gently above it, or floating sideways as though gravity has been temporarily suspended. In waking life, such sensations would be alarming or confusing, but at this threshold they simply happen. You accept them without struggle. You may even feel a kind of peaceful curiosity, like watching images appear in a fogged mirror. These early dream impressions are the mind's way of easing you out of the physical world and into its inner realm. They are tests, flickers, introductions, glimpses of the dream forming itself before it solidifies into a coherent scene. Imagine yourself lying in bed with your eyes closed. You're not quite asleep, but no longer fully awake. Thoughts begin to dissolve. Instead of sentences, you get fragments, half-formed ideas that blur like ink in water. A picture rises, a staircase. You're not climbing it, you're simply seeing it. Then it melts away. Another image appears, a coastline under violet light. Then that too fades. These are not dreams yet, they are dream seeds. The mind is picking up bits and pieces from your memory, imagination, and emotions, letting them drift across your awareness like drifting lanterns. In these borderlands, the brain's sensory gates are loosening but not fully closed. External reality still has a faint hold. Perhaps you can still hear the distant hum of a car outside, or the rustle of your blanket, but the internal world is beginning to rise in parallel. Two realities coexist, not in conflict but in a soft blend. You can still recognize your bedroom, yet images appear behind your eyelids as though projected onto a delicate screen. You can still feel your body resting, yet you may sense movement that isn't really happening. This overlap creates a rare state of dual awareness. Sometimes these moments create sensations so vivid they linger into waking life. A person might hear someone calling their name even though the house is silent. Another might see a flash of light or a figure moving at the edge of vision that disappears instantly. Some people feel a brief sense of presence, gentle, neutral, not frightening, as though someone is standing nearby. These experiences don't indicate anything supernatural. They are simply the mind momentarily blending the dream's ability to generate reality with the waking world's last traces of awareness. There's another borderland that people speak of, the moments just before fully waking. Here, the dream is evaporating, but your mind hasn't yet returned to the sharp clarity of day. You might hear the remnants of dream dialogue echoing faintly, as though drifting through the halls of your consciousness. The room around you looks familiar, but something feels slightly out of place. A shadow, a flicker, a movement that might have been real or might have been part of the dream pulling away. These moments can create illusions that feel like the dream brushing against the waking world. A door in the wrong place, a window showing a sky that isn't quite right, a piece of furniture shifted. These details fade quickly as the waking mind fully reactivates, but for a heartbeat, the two worlds overlap. And then there is the phenomenon that many people experience at least once in their lives, the sensation of waking but being unable to move. This state emerges when the mind returns to awareness before the body finishes transitioning out of the dream's protective stillness. Instead of panic, imagine describing it softly. Your body is resting deeply while your mind rises gently ahead of it, like a diver surfacing before the waves are fully parted. You're conscious, aware of your room, but your muscles are still, wrapped in the quiet safety hold that prevents you from acting out your dreams. It feels strange, but this experience is temporary and harmless. It's simply a mismatch in timing, one world letting go a moment later than the other. In this still state, it is common for dream imagery to spill into the waking environment. A fleeting shadow, a feeling of movement, a soft sound that seems to come from nowhere. These are not hallucinations in the alarming sense. They are residues of the dream world still active in your perception. The mind is adjusting, recalibrating, rebalancing itself between inner creation and outer reality. It is also during these border states that some people experience false awakenings, dreams where you believe you've already woken up. You rise from your bed, stretch, walk into another room, begin your morning routine, and only then notice something is slightly wrong. A mirror that reflects the wrong expression. A clock that shows an impossible time. A hallway that leads to a place you've never seen. In that moment, the dream reveals itself. You wake again, this time truly awake, and the bedroom returns to its familiar shape. False awakenings often leave a sense of wonder behind. For a few seconds, you can feel both the dream room and the real room layered on top of one another, like two translucent images sliding into alignment. It is one of the clearest demonstrations that dreams are not just mental images, they are perceptual worlds, constructed with such fidelity that they can momentarily stand beside reality without breaking. These borderlands, though fleeting, offer a rare glimpse into the mechanics of consciousness. They show how the mind can shift from one mode of existence to another, carrying pieces of each world into the next. For a few breaths each night, you're not entirely in your body and not entirely out of it. You dwell in an in-between, an edge where imagination and reality exchange a quiet handshake. Paying attention to these transitions doesn't disrupt sleep. If anything, it enhances your awareness of the mind's quiet power. You begin to notice how gently it closes one world and opens another, how skillfully it moves you from the familiar to the mysterious. The borderlands are not a place you can stay, but they are a reminder that consciousness is more flexible, more fluid, and more layered than we often realize. There is a moment inside certain dreams when something shifts, not in the dream world itself, but in you. The scene continues as before. The colours remain soft. The air holds its dreamlike stillness, yet a quiet realization begins to bloom. You become aware, not in the usual passive way of drifting through a dream, but with a clarity that feels almost like a lantern being lit in a dim corridor. You know you are dreaming. And in that instant, a gentle doorway opens between two modes of consciousness, the drifting one that dreams and the observing one that normally stays awake. This state is called lucidity, but the word alone doesn't capture the sensation. It feels more like waking up inside sleep. One moment, you're running through a city where the streets rearrange themselves. The next, something inside you whispers, "This isn't real." But I am here. It is not a loud announcement. It arrives softly, like a glow spreading through the fog, and once you notice it, the dream becomes clearer, more responsive to your intentions, yet still wrapped in the delicate fabric of unreality. People who experience lucid dreams often describe the transition as an emotional turning point. The dream shifts from something that happens to you into something you participate in with awareness. The dream landscape becomes vivid in a new way, colours brighter, textures sharper, sounds more resonant, as though the world is suddenly aware of you too. The sense of presence intensifies. You can feel your dream body more precisely. You can sense the space around you with more depth and clarity. The world becomes both mysterious and familiar, like revisiting a childhood place in perfect memory. What's fascinating is that this shift doesn't require waking logic or analytical thinking. You don't suddenly perform calculations or analyze your surroundings with scientific rigor. Instead, lucidity feels like a soft expansion of awareness, a gentle widening of the mind's field. It's as though you're drifting on a river that suddenly becomes clearer, allowing you to see not just the water, but the stones below. The current continues to carry you, but you now understand where you are floating. Lucid dreaming is not rare, but it is often fleeting. Many people experience it by accident, perhaps during a moment when the dream becomes unusual enough to prompt a spark of recognition. For example, you might notice that your bedroom has too many windows, or that the moon is glowing in a strange colour, or that you're able to walk through a wall without resistance. Something improbable happens, and instead of accepting it as the dream self usually does, another part of your mind awakens briefly and whispers, "This is a dream." This quiet recognition opens a pathway that leads deeper into the phenomenon. Once lucidity arrives, the dream world becomes remarkably malleable. Not perfectly controllable, but responsive, like a lake that ripples when you touch its surface. If you decide to walk into a forest, the path may open in front of you. If you want to fly, your body might rise effortlessly, as though gravity has stepped aside in polite acknowledgement. If you wish to speak with someone, the dream may produce a figure walking toward you, with a face half remembered from your past. The dream responds not to commands, but to intention flavoured with emotion. Unlike waking reality, this responsiveness is not governed by physical rules. It's governed by the fluid logic of the dreaming mind. A gentle wish can be enough to reshape the landscape. A quiet curiosity can bring something new into view. Movement feels light, effortless, guided less by muscle and more by desire. Even the air feels different, as though it carries your intentions like a breeze carries seeds. Scientists who study lucid dreaming have described it using complex language, but the essence is simple. During a lucid dream, a small part of your waking awareness flickers back to life, while the rest of the mind remains within the dream. The part responsible for reflection, the inner observer that says, "I know who I am," steps forward, but only slightly. It doesn't take full control. It simply joins the dream gently, like a guest arriving in the middle of a performance without interrupting the play. This merging of awareness gives lucidity a sense of magic, not because it breaks physics, but because it combines two modes of being that rarely overlap. You experience the dream as both participant and witness. You move through its landscapes with the understanding that the world is made of your own mind, and yet it feels external, alive, unfolding with its own rhythms. You're both the traveller and the terrain. Some lucid dreams feel deeply peaceful. You might drift above a quiet ocean, watching moonlight glide across the waves. You might sit beneath a tree that glows faintly at the edges, its branches swaying in a wind that doesn't exist. You might explore a city built from memories and imagination, each building shimmering with a sense of possibility. In these moments, lucidity is not about control. It is about presence, about noticing the beauty of a world that exists nowhere except in the space between your thoughts. Other lucid dreams are more emotionally charged. You might meet someone you miss and speak to them with the full knowledge that they're not physically present. The conversation may feel healing, comforting, or bittersweet. You might face something that frightened you in the past, but with a newfound clarity that softens the fear. Lucidity can bring a sense of empowerment not through force, but through understanding. The emotions you carry into the dream become part of the world's architecture. One of the most profound qualities of a lucid dreaming is the stillness that often accompanies it. The dream becomes a place where time behaves differently, stretching or slowing to match your awareness. You may explore for what feels like an hour, only to wake and find that only a few minutes have passed. This elasticity makes the dream world feel like a separate dimension, one where inner experience takes precedence over external measurement. And then, like all dreams, lucidity eventually fades. Sometimes you wake gently, returning to your bed with a feeling of quiet awe. Other times the dream slips back into non-lucid drifting, the aware part of your mind sinking beneath the surface like a stone into deep water. Either way, the feeling lingers, the sense that you have glimpsed something rare and delicate, a meeting point between consciousness and imagination. Lucid dreaming reminds us that the dream world is not just a theatre of images, but a realm where awareness can bloom in unexpected ways. It shows that the borders of consciousness are softer than we think, and that the mind is capable of holding multiple levels of experience at once. It suggests that the dream world is not merely a story unfolding, but a space open to exploration, a world that waits each night, shaped by the quiet tides of your inner life. There are nights when dreams feel like storms, unpredictable, shifting, powerful. And there are other nights when they feel like breezes, gentle and responsive, moving in ways that seem to echo your thoughts and emotions. Most of the time, dreams arrive without asking for your guidance, unfolding in their own mysterious rhythm. But there is a quiet truth many people don't realize. The dream world can sometimes be nudged, not controlled entirely, more like encouraged, persuaded, or gently steered, the way you might place your hand near a candle flame and watch it flicker toward the warmth without extinguishing its glow. This delicate influence is what many refer to as directed dreaming. It does not mean piloting the dream with perfect precision, nor forcing it into specific shapes. Instead, it is an art of subtle suggestion, a soft conversation between your conscious intention and the drifting currents of your sleeping mind. When done gently, the dream world listens, it adjusts, it bends slightly, like tall grass responding to the direction of the wind. To understand this, imagine the mind as a lake at night. During waking life, the surface is constantly disturbed by external ripples, noises, responsibilities, conversations, sights, and sensations. But once you fall asleep, the surface begins to calm. Slowly, steadily, the waves flatten. The lake darkens into stillness. In this silence, even a tiny pebble, an intention, a memory, a single thought held lightly, can create ripples that spread far across the surface. Directed dreaming is the act of letting one of these pebbles fall just before you drift into sleep, trusting that the ripples may shape what rises from the depths. People have practiced versions of this for centuries, even without understanding why it works. Ancient cultures whispered questions to their dreams, hoping for guidance. Artists place sketches under their pillows in hopes of inspiration. Some people still fall asleep thinking about a lost loved one, hoping to meet them in a dream. Others repeat a gentle phrase before bedtime. Show me something I need to see, and then let the night carry them. Modern science, using softer language, describes this as dream incubation. The idea is simple. When you carry a thought into sleep, your mind does not drop it the moment consciousness fades. Instead, the thought lingers in the borderlands woven into the earliest threads of the dream. If the emotional weight or clarity of the intention is strong enough, the dream has a higher chance of shaping itself around it. Not perfectly, not always directly, but with a noticeable influence. For example, imagine feeling stressed about an upcoming decision. You go to bed thinking not about the decision itself, but about the feeling of wanting clarity. You picture a calm place, a meadow, a quiet room, a shoreline at dusk. That calming intention may find its way into your dreams. You might find yourself walking through a peaceful landscape, encountering a symbol or scene that reflects your desire for clarity. The dream interprets your intention in its own language, offering imagery that speaks to the emotional root of your thoughts rather than the literal details. Similarly, imagine wanting to revisit a pleasant memory. Before sleep, you think gently about the people and places associated with that moment. You don't cling to the thought, you let it drift like a warm lantern floating upward. When the dream arrives, it may not recreate the memory exactly, but it might echo its atmosphere. You may find yourself walking through a place that carries the same emotional tone, or speaking with someone who resembles the person you miss. The dream responds not to exact instructions, but to emotional cues. This responsiveness becomes even more evident when subtle external cues are introduced into sleep. For instance, a faint sound played while you are dreaming, something soft like the distant chime of bells or a few notes of music, can weave itself into the dream world. You might hear the bells as part of a dream celebration, or discover the music drifting from a nearby window in the dream city you're exploring. A gentle scent released into the room might transform into a dream flower blooming along a path. These effects are not guaranteed, but when they occur, they reveal how open the dreaming mind is to guidance. What is beautiful about directed dreaming is that it respects the dream world's autonomy. You're not trying to impose a rigid structure. Instead, you're offering the dream a starting point, a seed, a colour, a mood, a question. The dream then grows from that seed in its own way, weaving your intention into its fabric without losing its spontaneous nature. It feels less like controlling a dream and more like collaborating with it. There are simple practices that many people use unconsciously to invite certain dreams. Writing down a thought before bed is one. Whispering a quiet intention is another. Even the act of visualizing a place or feeling before sleep can gently guide the dream's direction. Some people imagine a doorway in their mind not as a literal entrance but as a symbolic gesture. I am ready to explore. The mind takes note. The dream responds. But directed dreaming is not always about goals or outcomes. It can also be about emotional healing. When a difficult memory lingers, bringing gentle attention to it before bedtime, without fear, without pressure, sometimes invites the dream to revisit it in a softened form. Perhaps the dream reshapes the memory, placing it in a new setting or offering a different resolution. It's as if the mind uses the dream to reweave emotional threads that have become tangled or frayed. Even fears can be transformed. Someone who dreams of running might one night enter the dream with a subtle intention to stop and face what chases them. And when they do, the dream may shift. The chasing figure might dissolve or transform into something harmless or speak. This doesn't happen through willpower, but through openness, the kind of quiet courage that invites the dream to reveal its deeper story. Directed dreaming also shows how deeply the mind listens during sleep. Even small emotional currents matter. If you go to bed feeling grateful, the dream may carry that feeling into scenes of connection or beauty. If you carry quiet wonder, the dream may turn toward exploration. If you carry curiosity, the dream may open into something symbolic or mysterious. And if you carry nothing in particular, no worries, no intentions, the dream simply follows its own tides, building worlds from the endless reservoir of your memories and imagination. Directed dreaming reminds us that sleep is not passive. It is an active, living process. A time when the mind wanders through landscapes shaped by your inner life. And though you cannot command the dream world, you can breathe into it. You can offer it a direction, like placing a single feather into a river and watching the current pull it softly along. There is a quiet astonishment hidden inside the simple fact that dreams exist at all. Every night, without light entering your eyes or sound touching your ears, without the weight of objects in your hands or the coolness of air on your skin, the mind still produces a full world of experience. You see colours that aren't present. You hear voices that have no physical source. You walk through landscapes that your body never touches. And yet you experience these moments with the same emotional richness as waking life. Something inside you generates reality, not the outer world, but an inner one that feels just as alive. When you think about it, this is remarkable. In waking life, so much of what you experience depends on the physical world, the sky's brightness, the ground beneath your feet, the sounds that drift through the morning. But dreaming shows that consciousness is not bound to those ingredients. The mind can create experience from within itself. It doesn't need light to see. It doesn't need external voices to hear. It doesn't need the ground to feel that you are moving. It constructs its own universe, carefully and convincingly, using only the materials of thought, memory, and imagination. This is one reason some scientists describe dreams as a proto-conscious state, not a lesser version of waking consciousness, but different mode, not complete, but foundational. In this view, dreaming represents an early form of consciousness, one that evolved long before language or logic, back when inner experience was shaped more by emotion and instinct than by analysis. The dream world is like an old script the mind still knows by heart, a place where vivid imagery and fluid emotion dominate, unburdened by the rules of waking thought. To understand this, imagine consciousness as a vast landscape with different terrains. Waking life is one terrain, bright, structured, defined by the sensory world. It is a place where reality feels solid, where you can touch a table and know it will not dissolve. Dreams are another terrain, softer, more fluid, shaped by inner movements rather than outer ones. Both terrains belong to the same landscape of consciousness, just as a forest and a shoreline belong to the same continent. You inhabit one during the day and the other at night, but they are both parts of who you are. There is something deeply revealing in the fact that dreams feel like reality, even when they break every rule. You might fly through the air, speak with someone who passed away, or step into a memory from childhood that blends strangely with the present. And yet, you respond to these moments with genuine emotion. Your heart quickens, your breath deepens. You care about what happens in the dream even though nothing around you is physically real. This emotional truth is one of the clearest signs that consciousness doesn't rely on the physical world to produce meaning. It can create meaningful experience from within, independent of external input. In dreams, your awareness becomes painter, actor, and observer. It shapes the landscape and moves through it. It feels emotions not as concepts but as currents, soft or intense, warm or chilling. It builds entire conversations using only the echoes of your memories. It constructs people, places and stories that didn't exist a moment earlier and may never exist again. These creations come not from outside, but from the inner wellspring of consciousness itself. This inner capacity becomes even more striking when the dream world offers experiences that feel more vivid than waking life. Many people report dreams where colours seem more intense, where emotions feel stronger, where the sense of presence is deeper. In these moments, the dreaming mind is not just imitating reality, it is generating a form of reality that feels heightened, distilled. It is as though the mind, free from the constant noise of the physical world, turns its attention inward and paints with a brighter palette. Some researchers suggest that this dream state may reveal a fundamental truth, that consciousness is not merely a reflection of sensory input, but a creator of experience. The physical world provides one kind of canvas, but remove the canvas and the mind simply picks another. Dreaming shows the mind's ability to generate reality from its own depths. In this way, dreams are not illusions, they're expressions of consciousness exploring its own nature. From a philosophical perspective, this raises gentle questions. If your mind can create an entire world with no external input, how much of waking reality is also shaped by the mind? When you see something beautiful, is the beauty in the object or in your perception of it? When you feel fear, is the fear tied to the event or to the interpretation? Dreams remind us that perception is not a passive mirror. It is an active process. The mind participates in shaping the world we experience, whether we are awake or asleep. And if dreaming is a form of consciousness that exists without the physical world, then waking reality may be only one mode among many. Consciousness might not be a single state, but a spectrum of possibilities. Dreams sit on that spectrum like a parallel branch. close enough to waking life that we recognize it, but distant enough to feel otherworldly. This suggests that what we call reality may simply be the version of consciousness that depends on the senses, while dreaming is the version that depends on the inner world. Some thinkers even suggest that dreaming may reveal the raw material of consciousness, the building blocks of inner life before they're shaped by physical surroundings. In dreams, you see without eyes, hear without ears, move without muscles. Experience arises from something deeper than the body, something that persists even when the senses fall silent. It is not that the physical world is irrelevant, far from it, but that the mind carries its own ability to generate worlds. This idea is both humbling and beautiful. It means that each night, when you slip into dreams, you're witnessing consciousness in its purest form, creative, expressive, and untethered. You're stepping into an existence built entirely from within, one that reveals how rich your inner life truly is. And in that space, you discover that the boundaries of reality are softer than you imagined. Dreams do not prove that there are other dimensions or literal alternate worlds, but they show that your consciousness is capable of experiencing worlds beyond the physical one. They show that your mind holds vast landscapes you can enter simply by closing your eyes. In this way, dreams become a quiet lens, a way of understanding that consciousness has many rooms, many modes, many expressions. There is a quiet idea that drifts through many dreams, even if we don't always notice it. The sense that you are living a life that could have been, a life adjacent to your own, shaped by a different choice, a different moment, a different turn in the path. You might find yourself in a job you never pursued, standing in a home you never lived in, speaking to someone you never met in waking life, yet feel you somehow know. These dreams often carry a subtle emotional weight, familiarity mixed with curiosity, recognition mixed with wonder. It feels as though you are stepping into a version of yourself that exists somewhere just out of reach. This is where dreams begin to resemble an inner multiverse, not a literal collection of parallel universes with different versions of physical reality, but a psychological multiverse made from all the possibilities your mind can imagine. Each night, the dreaming mind explores these possibilities, weaving stories from the threads of what-ifs and might-have-beens. The result is not random chaos, but a landscape of alternate selves, each shaped by paths your waking life did not take. Imagine standing in a long hallway with many doors. Behind each door is a different room, a different life you could have lived. In one room, you pursued a passion you abandoned years ago. In another, you stayed in a relationship that ended in waking life. In another, you moved to a city you once considered but never chose. These rooms are not literal places, but metaphors for the countless narrative branches your mind carries within it. Dreams, in their gentle and expressive way, let you wander through these rooms without needing to commit to them. Sometimes the dream self behaves in ways you wouldn't expect. Maybe you speak with more confidence, or you're quieter, or you make a bold decision without hesitation. These behaviors can feel surprising, yet strangely natural. They are expressions of alternate versions of you, versions whose qualities may be dormant in waking life, but fully present in the dream. These glimpses can be enlightening, revealing strengths you didn't know you possessed or fears you hadn't acknowledged. This sense of exploring alternate selves can happen subtly. You might dream of being a little older or a little younger, or of having a different job, or of living in a place that feels familiar yet is not part of your real biography. The dream does not announce that this is another version of your life. It simply lets you experience it. And afterward, you wake with a lingering feeling that you stepped into a different timeline, even if only for a moment. This phenomenon arises because the dreaming mind is remarkably free from the constraints that shape waking identity. In waking life, who you are is reinforced by habits, routines, responsibilities, and the expectations of others. But in dreams, these boundaries become porous. The mind can imagine a different identity with ease because it is not tethered to social structure or physical limitation. It simply expresses possibilities. The dream self is not a fixed character. It is fluid, shifting, exploring emotional truths through symbolic roles. You might even notice that certain dreams revisit alternate versions of your life in recurring ways. Perhaps you return to a house that never existed, yet feels like home. Or you interact with a friend you've never met in waking life but recognize instantly in the dream. These recurring elements suggest that your mind maintains quiet neighborhoods of possibility, clusters of meaning that reflect your values, fears, desires, or unresolved stories. The dream world becomes a map of these emotional geographies. Some dreams explore alternate paths more directly. Many people dream about careers they never pursued, performing on stage, teaching in a classroom, healing others, traveling the world, inventing something extraordinary. These dreams often feel empowering or wistful. They reveal the unexpressed parts of your inner life, reminding you of versions of yourself that still live inside you, even if you do not embody them every day. Other dreams explore alternate relationships, conversations with people you no longer speak to, bonds with strangers who feel instantly important, encounters with loved ones who are gone. These dreams don't necessarily reflect literal alternate universes. Instead, they reflect the branching pathways of emotion. They let you explore what it would feel like to reconcile, to speak, to heal, or to understand something left unfinished. They provide emotional closure that waking life might never allow. Dreams also test alternate decisions. You might choose differently in a dream than you would in reality, say yes where you often say no, or walk away where you usually stay. These scenarios reveal hidden desires or fears, giving shape to emotional currents that lie beneath waking awareness. Sometimes these dreams feel liberating. Other times, they feel unsettling. Either way, they show how the dreaming mind plays with possibility, exploring outcomes that your waking self might never permit. When scientists speak about the branching nature of possibility, they sometimes use heavy terminology, but we can soften it. Think of your life as a tree. Each choice is a branch. Some branches you climbed, others you didn't. Dreams allow you to wander among the untraveled branches, not to change the past, but to understand its shape. The inner multiverse is simply the full canopy of your mind, holding every potential story your imagination can reach. Dreams handle this exploration with gentleness. They don't show you entire alternate lifetimes. They give glimpses, moments, impressions, enough to sense the emotional truth of the alternate path without overwhelming you. This is because dreams prioritize emotional meaning over literal detail. They explore the essence of the path, not its exact events. And that brings us to one of the most powerful qualities of dreams. They reveal that identity is not singular. You're not one fixed self. You're a constellation of selves, past, present, imagined, possible. Waking life asks you to choose one path, but dreaming lets you wander among many. It is a quiet reminder that your consciousness contains infinite versions of you, shaped by the hopes you carry, the experiences you've lived, and the stories you've left unfinished. The inner multiverse is not a grand cosmic theory here. It is an intimate landscape. It is the place where your mind explores the question, who else could I be? And it does so softly, through scenes and symbols, through conversations and journeys, through quiet decisions made in the twilight of sleep. For as long as humans have been able to speak, we've wondered what dreams are trying to tell us. Long before brain scanners, long before sleep labs, long before the language of neuroscience existed, there were thinkers who looked inward and asked a simple but profound question. If dreams feel real, what does that say about reality itself? This question has echoed through ancient temples, quiet monasteries, and the desks of philosophers who stayed awake by lantern light, trying to understand the place where consciousness goes each night. Many early cultures did not separate dreams from reality. To them, the dream world was not a lesser world. It was simply another layer, sometimes deeper, sometimes higher, connected to the waking one by a thread as thin as breath. In some Eastern traditions, especially in early Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, dreams were described as parallel layers of existence, realms where the mind wandered while the body rested, realms no less significant than the physical one. These traditions suggested that waking life itself might be just another layer, a dream of a different kind, textured by senses but still shaped by the mind. These ideas were not meant to confuse, they were meant to awaken a sense of gentle curiosity. If a vivid dream can give you the feeling of walking through a forest, hearing leaves rustle and smelling damp earth beneath your feet, then maybe the experience of real forests is also shaped by the mind's interpretation. The forest exists, of course, but the feeling of it, the meaning of it, is something consciousness creates. This soft blurring of boundaries shows up again and again in philosophy. In ancient China, the philosopher Zhuangzi told a story that has lasted for centuries. One night he dreamed he was a butterfly. He fluttered through the world in bright, effortless motion, feeling the joy of weightless existence. When he woke, he wondered, was I a man who dreamed of being a butterfly, or am I now a butterfly dreaming of being a man? It wasn't a riddle to be solved. It was an invitation to contemplate the fluid nature of identity and experience. In the West, thinkers took a different but equally intriguing approach. René Descartes, often remembered for his logical rigour, spent many long nights considering dreams. He noticed how dreams could imitate waking life so convincingly that he sometimes couldn't tell the difference until he woke. This led him to ask, how do I know that the world I experience while awake is not also a dream? He wasn't suggesting that nothing is real. He was suggesting that the senses alone are not. Trustworthy foundations. If dreams can mimic reality, then something deeper, some inner awareness is needed to understand the nature of truth. We can soften this idea. Descartes wasn't challenging the existence of tables, trees, or sky. He was reminding us that experience is filtered. The mind interprets what the body senses. That interpretation is what we call reality, and dreams show us that consciousness can build interpretations without any external input at all. In more recent times, philosophers have begun treating dreams not as illusions, but as genuine forms of experience. When you dream, you're not experiencing nothing. You're having a real moment of consciousness, one that is simply not tied to the external world. This means your dream self is not imaginary in the trivial sense. It is another expression of your awareness. The places you visit in dreams may not exist physically, but they exist experientially. They have emotional truth, narrative shape, sensory presence. One modern view suggests that dreams reveal consciousness in its most natural form. When awake, your mind is constantly shaped by tasks, responsibilities, social expectations, and the need to navigate the physical world. But in dreams, these structures fall away. What remains is consciousness as a raw, flowing experience, unrestricted, creative, deeply emotional. Dreams show us what the mind is when it is not occupied by the demands of daily life. They reveal what consciousness can be when allowed to wander freely. This idea leads to a gentle but powerful question. If dreams feel real while they're happening, if you laugh, cry, fear, or love with genuine emotion, should we consider dreams as part of lived reality? Not reality in the physical sense, but reality in the sense of inner truth. After all, your heart cannot tell the difference. A tender moment in a dream can lighten your mood for days. A frightening dream can leave a shadow on your morning. A joyful reunion with someone lost can bring real comfort, even though the meeting happened in a realm woven entirely by the mind. And if dreams are part of lived reality, what does that mean for waking life? Perhaps waking reality is just one version of experience among many. It follows certain rules, gravity, time, physical limits, but those rules do not diminish the richness of dream reality. They simply define a different mode of consciousness. In dreams, time loosens, space bends, emotion becomes architecture. Each world reveals something about how your consciousness moves and adapts. Some philosophers describe dreaming as a nightly reminder that we are more than our waking identities. In dreams, you can become a child again, or an elder, or a version of yourself shaped by different histories. You can visit places built from memory, imagination, or pure invention. You can explore emotions you've avoided, or discover strengths you didn't know you had. Dreams show that the self is not a single, fixed entity. It is a shifting, layered presence that expresses itself differently depending on the realm it inhabits. This philosophical view doesn't require you to believe in literal alternate dimensions. It simply invites you to treat the dream world as meaningful, not random, not empty, but a genuine space where experience unfolds. A space where consciousness expresses possibilities that waking life cannot always accommodate. Perhaps the most beautiful aspect of this philosophical tradition is its gentle humility. Dreams remind us that we do not fully understand the mind. They suggest that consciousness has depths we have not yet explored. They encourage us to approach the mystery with openness rather than certainty. They whisper that reality, inner or outer, may be more flexible, more fluid, and more interconnected than it appears. And so, when you dream, you're participating in a lineage of human wonder that spans centuries. You're stepping into a realm that philosophers have tried to describe using stories, metaphors, and questions rather than answers. You're entering a space where experience is real, even if the world around you is made of thought. When you're ready, we can drift into session 13, where the boundary between science and imagination becomes even softer. There are times when science reaches the edge of what it can measure, and beyond that edge lies a quiet field of ideas, half hypothesis, half metaphor, where imagination and inquiry walk side by side. Dreams, with their fluidity and mystery, often invite us into that field. They suggest that consciousness is not just a switch flipped by the brain, but something more expansive, more intricate, more difficult to pin down. They hint that awareness might be a deeper phenomenon than our waking senses reveal. And it is here that certain scientific and philosophical speculations gently enter the picture. Not as certainties, but as possibilities whispered on the horizon. One such speculation is the notion that consciousness might not be entirely confined to the physical structures of the brain. This does not mean consciousness floats free like a ghost or travels between dimensions. Instead, it suggests something more nuanced, that the brain could be a receiver, a translator, or a concentrator of consciousness, rather than its sole origin. Think of a radio. The music you hear does not come from inside the radio. The radio organizes signals into something audible. Some thinkers have wondered whether the brain might play a similar role, shaping, focusing, and filtering a form of awareness that could be more fundamental. This idea surfaces at the fringes of quantum theory, though it is important to soften the terminology. When people speak of quantum consciousness, they often imagine something far more fantastical than what physicists intend. But if we translate the idea into gentle language, we can see its subtle allure. Quantum science studies the tiniest building blocks of reality, particles that behave in ways that defy everyday intuition. They can exist in multiple states until observed, influence each other across distance, and act in patterns that seem less mechanical and more mysterious. Some researchers have wondered whether the unpredictable, shimmering nature of these tiny particles might provide clues about consciousness. Not in the sense that dreams unfold in alternate universes, or that minds hop between dimensions, but in the sense that the fabric of reality itself may be more fluid and interconnected than we once believed. If the world at its smallest scale behaves like a field of possibilities rather than fixed certainties, then perhaps consciousness too has aspects of possibility woven into its nature. Of course, these ideas remain speculative. They sit in that gentle space between science and poetry, where facts and wonder mingle without declaring themselves one or the other. But even as speculation, they offer a beautiful metaphor for dreaming. In dreams, reality does seem to behave like possibility rather than fixed law. Places appear without cause, people shift identities, time bends, scenes form and dissolve like patterns in a field that responds to attention, emotion, and intention, rather than physical rules. Another idea, explored not just by scientists but by philosophers and cognitive theorists, is that consciousness might extend like a field, a subtle presence that exists throughout the brain, or perhaps even more broadly. In this view, awareness is not a single spark ignited by a specific region. It is a phenomenon that emerges from patterns, rhythms, and connections. It flows rather than sits still. It expands rather than remains localized. And dreams may be one of the clearest expressions of this flowing field. When sensory input is muted and the mind turns inward, consciousness begins to reveal how wide and creative it can be. It fills the inner space with landscapes, stories, emotions, and characters, like a field generating patterns of its own design. There are also theories that speak of dimensions, though not in the science fiction sense. These theories use dimension as a metaphor for layers of experience rather than literal parallel universes. They suggest that consciousness might operate on different levels, just as music can hold multiple harmonies at once. Waking life is one harmony, structured, grounded, shaped by physical reality. Dreaming is another, fluid, symbolic, rooted in emotional truth rather than sensory detail. Meditation brings another harmony, one defined by stillness and inward expansion. All these states belong to the same mind, yet each reveals a different aspect of consciousness. Dreams often combine these dimensions in fascinating ways. You may feel deeply present in a dream, experiencing emotion, perception, and selfhood with clarity, even though the world around you is built from imagination. This suggests that the foundation of experience does not depend on physical surroundings. It depends on awareness itself, on the way consciousness organizes its own content. When this content is sensory, you call it waking life. When it is symbolic, you call it dreaming. When it's quiet and expansive, you call it reflection or meditation. The mind shifts between these layers as effortlessly as breathing. Some thinkers propose that consciousness may even shape reality more than we realize, not in a mystical or supernatural way, but through the simple fact that perception influences experience. The world you see is filtered through memory, emotion, expectation. Two people can walk through the same city and experience entirely different realities. If waking life already contains layers shaped by the mind, then dreams are simply a more transparent version of the same process, a place where the mind's creative role becomes undeniable. This brings us back to dreams with a deeper appreciation. When you dream, you're not visiting scientific dimensions or travelling through physical multiverses, but you're exploring dimensions of your own consciousness, layers that waking life keeps tucked beneath routines and responsibilities. Dreams allow you to wander in landscapes shaped not by atoms and gravity, but by emotion and meaning. They allow you to experience forms of reality that are built from inner truth rather than outer circumstance. We can think of it this way. If waking life is the world shaped by the senses, then dreaming is the world shaped by the soul, or whatever name you prefer for the quiet centre of your experience. And when philosophers or scientists use words like field, dimension, or quantum, they're often trying to point towards something ineffable, the sense that consciousness may be more mysterious than the brain's wiring diagram suggests. None of these ideas claim certainty. They are gentle attempts to describe a phenomenon that still lies just beyond full understanding. Dreams, in their soft and shifting beauty, provide glimpses of this mystery. They are living metaphors for the mind's ability to generate experience, to explore possibilities, to inhabit states that feel as real as waking life while following different rules. They invite us to consider that consciousness may be a deeper, broader landscape than our daytime selves ever pause to imagine. Whenever you're ready, we can drift gently into session 14, where shared patterns and collective dreamscapes begin to unfold. There is something quietly astonishing about how often our dreams resemble one another's. Across cultures, languages, and continents, people who have never met and whose waking lives might be separated by thousands of miles report dreams that follow similar themes. Being chased by an unseen presence, falling from a great height, finding themselves unprepared for an exam, arriving somewhere important only to realize something essential is missing, flying, wandering through abandoned cities, searching for something they cannot name. These patterns repeat so frequently that they form a kind of shared dream vocabulary, a collection of emotional symbols whispered across humanity. This shared imagery invites a gentle question. Why do so many of us dream the same dreams? The answer does not require anything supernatural or extraordinary, but it does invite us to consider the deep commonality of the human mind. We may come from different lives, yet we are shaped by similar fears, hopes, uncertainties, and desires. When the dreaming mind expresses these feelings through symbols, those symbols naturally cluster around similar shapes: running when afraid, flying when yearning for freedom, falling when losing control, searching when longing for understanding. In this way, dreams reveal a quiet map of shared human experience. Imagine that all humans carry their own inner oceans of memory and emotion. When we sleep, the tides rise, carrying fragments of our inner lives to the surface. And although each ocean is unique, the currents that move through them follow similar patterns. Fear is fear. Longing is longing. Joy is joy. Confusion, grief, hope. These feelings are universal, even if their stories differ. When dreams express them, they do so in imagery that resonates across cultures, like melodies emerging from instruments tuned to the same scale. Even the variations among dreams carry this shared quality. A person in one country might dream of being chased by a wolf. Someone elsewhere might be chased by a shadow. The specific form changes, but the emotional message remains the same. The dreaming mind often chooses symbols that reflect its own cultural and personal language, but the underlying feeling, the heartbeat beneath the imagery, belongs to all of humanity. There have been many attempts to catalogue these patterns. Psychologists and researchers have gathered stories from people of all ages and backgrounds, noting how often certain dream motifs arise. But beyond the scientific lists, there is something deeply poetic about this universality. without any coordination, without any communication, without any shared instruction. Billions of people wander through dreamscapes that echo each other's. It is as if the dreaming mind taps into something collective, not a shared physical world, but a shared emotional landscape. Consider the dream of flying. It appears in nearly every culture. The settings vary. Some people soar over oceans, others drift above mountains, still others glide through city skylines. But the sensation is consistent, a feeling of release, of weightlessness, of freedom from earthly constraints. Flying dreams seem to arise not from any specific memory, but from a universal desire, the wish to transcend something in waking life, whether it be responsibility, fear, limitation, or simply gravity itself. Or consider the dream of losing teeth, a strangely common one. While it has often been interpreted symbolically in different traditions, modern psychology views it as a reflection of vulnerability, anxiety, or a sense of losing control over something important. People may not know why the dream appears, but they recognize the emotional truth beneath it. The shared experience is not the teeth, it is the feeling. These recurring dreams suggest that, in some way, the human mind has a shared architecture. Not identical, but harmonized, like variations on a theme. Our inner worlds are shaped by personal histories, yet we all walk along similar emotional paths. Dreams reflect that shared humanity by expressing emotions in ways that transcend culture and time. This idea becomes even more intriguing when people report dreams that feel strangely connected to others. For example, two siblings dreaming of the same location on the same night, or partners reporting similar themes. These events are rare and may simply be coincidences shaped by shared experiences or emotional bonds. But when they occur, they stir something in us. A quiet wonder at the possibility that the dream world might carry echoes of our relationships. Even without literal shared dreams, there is a sense in which dreamscapes belong to a collective inner terrain. Think of how stories, myths, and folklore across civilizations often include similar symbols: heroic journeys, dangerous forests, wise guides, deceptive illusions, shape-shifting creatures. It is as though humanity throughout history has been dreaming in parallel, translating the same emotional truths into countless artistic and literary forms. When we dream, we do not access a single communal realm, but we do participate unknowingly in a tapestry of shared human experience. Each dream is woven from personal threads, your memories, your concerns, your hopes, but the patterns often align with those woven by others. This alignment is not evidence of a hidden network between minds. It is evidence of shared psychology. Our brains, though individually unique, evolved from the same blueprint, shaped by the same emotional needs, and so our dreams reflect a collective design. Still, there is a kind of beauty in imagining dreamers across the world wandering through their own symbolic landscapes at the same moment in time. A student in one country might dream of running through a hallway that shifts behind them, while someone halfway around the world dreams of a labyrinth. A mother might dream of losing something precious just as another mother dreams of holding her child tightly. These dreams are different, but they resonate with each other, like distant bells tolling the same note. This resonance hints at something profound. Although our dreamscapes belong to us individually, their emotional architecture belongs to us collectively. We are connected not by shared stories, but by shared feelings. Dreams express those feelings in images that reflect our inner worlds, but the themes belong to the human condition. Some researchers refer to this as content convergence, a soft term meaning that dreams tend to cluster around certain universal motifs. They explain it through psychology and evolution, not through mysticism. but the effect is still enchanting. It means that even when you dream alone, you're touching something many others have touched. You're walking through a landscape shaped by the deep currents of human existence. Perhaps that is why talking about dreams often feels intimate. When someone shares a dream, they're not just sharing a private story, they're sharing a symbol drawn from a shared emotional vocabulary. And when someone else hears it, they often recognize the feeling behind it. Dreams remind us that we're not as separate as we sometimes believe. Beneath the surface of our differences, there is a common ground where our minds speak in similar imagery. Whenever you're ready, we can drift into session 15, where these collective patterns broaden into the quiet question of whether dreaming itself is a form of nightly travel. There is a moment that happens to many people, not during a dream, but after they wake from one. You open your eyes, the room slowly comes into focus, and for a few seconds you feel as though you've returned from somewhere far away. Not metaphorically, but returned, the way a traveller steps into their home after a long journey. The body is in bed, still warm beneath the blanket, yet something inside you feels as though it has crossed distances measured not in miles, but in experiences. Your heart carries the weight of emotions that did not exist the night before. Your mind holds images from landscapes you've never walked. You remember conversations that never happened in the waking world, but felt real enough to leave an imprint. This feeling is the doorway to one of the gentlest, most profound questions we can ask. What if dreaming is a form of travel, not through physical space, but through the dimensions of your own consciousness? Dreams may not take you to literal alternate universes or parallel planets. They may not allow your physical body to drift through stars or slip into other timelines, but they do transport you into other versions of experience shaped by memory, emotion, possibility, and imagination. The dream self, though not made of matter, lives through these journeys with a depth of feeling that the waking self cannot dismiss. Think about a dream where you felt a deep longing or joy so bright it woke you smiling, or fear that lingered long into the morning. Those emotions were real, not pretend, not shallow, but fully alive within you. Your physical surroundings did not create them. A landscape built entirely by your mind did. In that sense, the dream world becomes a kind of internal dimension, a place where your consciousness explores possibilities that waking life cannot contain. Consider how time behaves in dreams. You might live through a full story, a beginning, a middle, an end, in just a few minutes of physical sleep. You might revisit a memory from childhood and feel as though it is happening again. You might experience a moment that stretches on and on, as though time itself has softened. These distortions show that the dream world operates by a different rhythm, following emotional flow rather than clocks and schedules. When you travel into a dream, you travel into a realm shaped by feeling, not physics. Now imagine how space behaves in dreams. You can walk through a doorway and appear in an entirely new location, your childhood home, then a forest at night, then a quiet cafe, then a place that seems entirely new yet somehow familiar. Distances collapse, borders dissolve, transitions happen effortlessly. There is no need for roads or maps. Space in dreams is flexible, shifting according to your inner landscape. When you move through these spaces, you're not wandering through physical coordinates. You're wandering through layers of your own mind. If you think about it this way, dreams begin to resemble journeys through an inner cosmos. Not a cosmos of stars and planets, but of memories, impressions, fears, hopes, and alternate selves. Each dream becomes a doorway, opening into a different region of this inner universe. Some regions feel close to waking life, built from familiar streets and known faces. Others feel distant, shaped by symbols and emotions you rarely encounter in the daytime. And the most mysterious dreams feel like entirely new worlds, places that seem to exist independently of your waking history, as if they belong to a deeper part of your consciousness. This idea becomes even more intriguing when you consider how the dream self behaves. It reacts, speaks, decides, loves, fears, explores. It feels like you, yet not exactly, sometimes wiser, sometimes braver, sometimes more vulnerable. The dream self can surprise you with decisions you would never make in waking life. It can reveal parts of your personality that rarely surface. It can show you versions of yourself shaped by lives you never lived. If dreams are internal journeys, then the dream self is a traveller, moving through possibilities, examining emotional truths, visiting versions of reality that waking life cannot accommodate. It is not a ghostly copy or a fictional character. It is your consciousness expressing itself differently depending on the world it inhabits. Some philosophers suggest that dreams are experiential realities, not hallucinations, not empty illusions, but genuine experiences occurring in a different mode. In this view, waking life is one reality, structured by external events and physical rules. Dreaming is another, structured by inner truth and emotional meaning. Both are real, but each follows a different logic. When you move from waking to dreaming, you're not leaving reality, you're stepping into a different version of it. This perspective doesn't require belief in supernatural travel or alternate dimensions. It simply acknowledges that consciousness itself contains multiple realms. The waking world is one realm, the dream world is another. Both are woven into your life and both shape who you are. But there is a deeper question too, the one that lingers softly beneath this entire series. What if every night, without realizing it, you drift into realities that are as meaningful as waking life, even if they are built from imagination? In dreams, you reconnect with emotions you suppressed during the day. You revisit relationships, re-examine choices, rehearse fears, explore desires. You heal, you wonder, you reflect, you experiment, you imagine. These inner journeys change you. They influence how you think, how you feel, how you understand yourself. In that sense, dreams are not passive. They're a form of nightly travel through the territories of your own consciousness. And this travel leaves traces, subtle shifts in mood, new insights, softened memories, new questions, lingering feelings. You wake not as the same person who fell asleep, but as someone slightly changed by the journey. So when we ask whether dreams are alternate realities, the gentle answer is this: dreams are realities, inner realities, emotional realities, experiential realities. They may not be physical, but they shape your internal world as powerfully as waking events do. The landscapes may dissolve with morning light, but the traveller who walked through them remains. You return each morning carrying pieces of those inner journeys, pieces that weave themselves quietly into your waking life. Whenever you're ready, we can move into session 16, where we begin to gather the lessons from these travels and learn how to explore the dream world with gentle intention. There is a tender moment that happens after certain dreams, the kind that linger softly in your chest, like the warmth of a candle after it's been blown out. You wake with a sense that something meaningful has just passed through you, but it fades too quickly, slipping away like mist the moment light touches it. Many people have felt that sadness of losing a beautiful dream before they could hold it. And many have wished they could remember more clearly, explore more deeply, or enter their dreams with a bit more awareness, without breaking the softness that makes dreaming what it is. This session is about those gentle practices, not techniques for control, not rigid routines, not anything that forces the mind into sharp focus. Instead, think of these as small rituals, quiet invitations you can offer to your dreaming self, ways of nurturing the connection between your waking mind and the inner worlds you visit each night, ways of treating the dream state not as something to conquer, but as something to explore with respect, curiosity, and softness. The first practice is perhaps the simplest, yet the most powerful: dream journaling. Not the dramatic, high-effort kind that demands perfect memory, just a habit of catching the threads of the dream before they slip away. Imagine waking from a dream as returning from a fading universe. The moment your eyes open, the dream begins to dissolve. A dream journal is a way of reaching out and capturing even a single thread, an image, a sentence, a colour, an emotion. It doesn't have to be complete. Even 3 words can hold the essence of the dream. If you keep the journal beside your bed, you can write before your mind fully wakes. This matters. The waking mind moves fast. It analyses, filters, organises, but the dream self lingers quietly in those first moments after sleep. If you write in that stillness, you invite the dream world into the waking world, allowing the two to meet gently on the page. Over time, writing even a few lines each morning begins to strengthen the bridge between these states. You start to remember more, you start to notice patterns, and the dreams themselves grow clearer as though they recognise that you are listening. The second practice is something often discussed in dream research, but it doesn't need to be approached scientifically. It can be approached softly, almost playfully: reality checking. This simply means developing a small habit during the day, pausing for a breath, looking around, and asking yourself quietly, "Am I awake?" In waking life, the answer is nearly always yes, but when this habit becomes familiar, it sometimes appears in dreams too. And in the dream, when you ask the question, the answer can surprise you. The scene may reveal its strangeness. A clock might show impossible numbers, a hallway might stretch too far, a mirror might ripple, and in that moment, the dream self becomes aware. This isn't about control, it's about recognition. Reality checking is like planting a lantern in your mind, one that occasionally lights up in dreams and lets you see the dream with a gentle clarity. Many people find that this awareness makes dreams feel more vivid, more meaningful, even more peaceful. The world doesn't become sharper in a stressful way. It becomes softer, as though you're watching your own inner world with new eyes. A third practice is setting an intention before sleep, a soft version of the techniques used in directed dreaming. Not an instruction, not a demand, but a small seed planted in the quiet moments before you drift off. This seed might be a question like, "What am I feeling beneath the surface?" Or a hope, "Show me something I need to understand." Or a simple desire, "I'd like to remember one moment of my dream tonight." The exact wording doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling behind it, the sincerity, the openness, the quiet curiosity. Imagine placing that intention on the surface of a still river. You do not push it. You do not chase it. You simply place it there and let the current take it wherever the night decides. Dreams respond most strongly to gentle requests, those offered with trust rather than force. Sometimes the dream will echo the intention directly. Other times, it will respond symbolically. You may dream of searching for an object, or walking through a doorway, or having a conversation that reveals an unexpected truth. The dream world speaks its own language, and intention is a way of asking it to speak more clearly. Another practice, closely related, is dream incubation, the act of inviting a specific theme or question into your night. This doesn't require any elaborate ritual. It can be as simple as writing a question on a small piece of paper before bed, or imagining an image connected to what you want to explore: a path, a window, a stream. Ancient cultures did versions of this intuitively. Today we simply give it a modern name. The process remains the same. You begin the night by offering the mind a direction, trusting that the dream will carry it somewhere meaningful. One of the most important things to remember is that all of these practices work best when approached gently, without pressure. Dreams do not open themselves through force. They open through presence, through the quiet willingness to notice, to listen, to receive. If you ever feel frustrated or impatient, the dream world tends to grow dimmer. But if you approach it with softness, it becomes clearer. Like a shy animal emerging from the forest when it senses the air is calm, there is also a practical way to support deeper dream exploration, creating a calming bedtime environment. The dream world responds to the emotional tone of the body and mind. If you drift into sleep with tension, the dreams may carry pieces of that tension. But if you enter sleep gently, dim lights, slow breathing, soft thoughts, the dream world often mirrors that gentleness. It becomes easier to navigate, easier to remember, easier to feel safe within. A soft blanket, a quiet room, and a few deep breaths can shape the entire night. But perhaps the most beautiful practice is the simplest one: curiosity. Not the sharp curiosity that demands answers, but the soft curiosity of a traveller who walks slowly, taking in the scenery. When you wake from a dream, whether vivid or blurry, ask yourself not what it means in a strict sense, but what it feels like. What emotions linger? What atmosphere? What colours? What echoes? Dreams often communicate in tone rather than plot, in mood rather than logic. By noticing these subtleties, you begin to understand the dream world in the language it prefers. Some people worry that exploring dreams might pull them away from waking life, but the opposite is true. These gentle practices help you feel more present in both worlds. They teach you to pay attention to your inner life, to recognize emotions before they grow overwhelming, to sense the quiet movements beneath your thoughts. Dreams become a companion, a mirror that reflects parts of you that waking life overlooks. When approached with tenderness, dream exploration is not about escaping reality. It's about expanding it. It's about understanding that your inner world is just as rich, meaningful, and alive as your outer one. And by paying attention to both, you become more whole. Whenever you're ready, we can drift into the final session, session 17, where all the threads of this journey gather into one last gentle reflection. There is a moment, just before sleep fully loosens its hold on the dream you've been wandering through, when you can almost feel the dream slipping like a soft fabric through your fingers. By the time your eyes open, the world you were just living in, its colours, its rooms, its characters, its emotions, has already begun to dissolve. Yet something remains, a trace, a mood, a feeling in your chest that does not belong to the morning but to the place you just left. And in that lingering echo is the quiet truth that dreams are not empty stories. They're not the mind's noise. They're messages, gentle, symbolic, emotional, whispered from the deeper layers of your consciousness. Dreams do not speak in sentences. They speak in atmospheres. They speak in gestures, in images, in metaphors that bypass logic and move directly into feeling. If waking life is a language of precision and structure, dreaming is a language of intuition, fluid, expressive, and layered with meaning. And the dream world in its quiet wisdom often shows you things that waking life hides beneath routine and responsibility. Think first of the dreams that stir longing. Perhaps you dream of a person from your past, someone who made you feel safe or loved or deeply understood. In the dream, you might sit with them, speak with them, or simply stand beside them in a peaceful place. You wake with a warmth that lingers, even though the meeting was not physical. These dreams are not trying to recreate the past. They're reminding you of what you value: connection, tenderness, belonging. They show you the emotional threads that shape your heart, even when you are unaware of them in waking life. Then there are the dreams that revisit fear, being chased, falling, losing something precious, arriving unprepared. These dreams are not warnings of external events, they are reflections of internal tensions. They show you where you feel uncertain, overwhelmed, or stretched too thin. They reveal the parts of your life where you crave stability or reassurance. In these dreams, fear becomes a symbol, a way for your mind to point gently toward the places that need care. Some dreams come as mirrors, reflecting back your current state. If you feel scattered or exhausted, your dreams might appear chaotic, shifting rapidly from scene to scene. If you feel calm and connected, the dream world may feel luminous, peaceful, expansive. These dreams are not predictions. They are emotional landscapes shaped by your inner weather. They show you what is happening beneath your daily thoughts, beneath your surface emotions. Other dreams come as rehearsals. They let you try out decisions, explore alternate paths, or express emotions you suppress while awake. You might confront someone you've avoided confronting in waking life. You might say something you've been holding inside. You might choose courage in a situation where you normally choose silence. These dreams do not dictate what you should do. They allow you to feel what it might be like. They're emotional test flights. Some dreams come as healers. You might find yourself in a dream speaking to someone who hurt you long ago, and the conversation may unfold in a way waking life never allowed. You might forgive them, or express your pain, or simply listen. Even though the person in the dream is a creation of your mind, the healing can be real. The heart often needs symbolic closure more than literal closure, and dreams provide that opportunity with surprising tenderness. Then there are the dreams that seem to come from somewhere deeper, those symbolic ones that linger longer than their details, like a melody that haunts you even after you've forgotten the tune. A door you couldn't open, a path that led into a forest, a glowing object you couldn't quite reach. These dreams operate like parables. They carry themes rather than messages. The door might represent possibilities you feel blocked from. The forest might symbolize the unknown future. The glowing object might represent a hope or longing you have not yet named. These dreams are not puzzles to solve. They are invitations to feel. Some dreams offer reminders of forgotten parts of yourself. You might find yourself laughing in a carefree way, or exploring with childlike wonder, or feeling brave and decisive. These qualities may be quiet in your waking life, buried under responsibilities or habits, but in dreams they bloom freely. The dream self often reveals pieces of identity you have placed aside. The dream is saying, you still have this within you. There are also dreams that explore grief, the kind that appear months or years after a loss, when the waking world believes you are over it, yet your inner world still holds quiet ache. In these dreams, you might meet someone who is no longer here. You might speak with them, or simply be near them. These dreams are not illusions. They are emotional rituals. They allow you to feel presence where absence lives. They give shape to love that has nowhere else to go. And then there are dreams that seem to stretch beyond personal story. Dreams that feel mythic, symbolic, cosmic. You might find yourself floating through a star-filled landscape, or standing at the edge of an ocean that glows with strange light, or walking through a city made of shifting geometry. These dreams are not about specific events or memories. They are expressions of wonder. They show you what it feels like when the mind touches mystery, when, consciousness brushes against its own depth. If you look at dreams through this gentle lens, you begin to see them not as random but as expressive, revealing truths that waking life sometimes hides. They reveal your emotional state, your unspoken desires, your buried fears, your untapped strengths. They reveal the ways you are growing, the ways you are resisting growth, the ways you are healing, the ways you are hurting. They reveal versions of you that waking life does not always make space for. And perhaps most profoundly, dreams reveal that consciousness is not limited to the physical world. They show you that your mind is capable of creating entire universes, full of meaning, emotion, and experience, without any external input. Each night you step into a version of reality that feels different from waking life, yet equally vivid, equally rich. You are not escaping the world, you're exploring another part of it, another part of yourself. When you sleep tonight, you will return to that inner world. You will close your eyes, breathe softly, and drift into the landscapes that rise from within. The world you enter may look nothing like this one. It may follow different rules, speak in different symbols, reveal different truths, but it will belong to you, and you will move through it, not as someone lost, but as someone exploring the endlessly unfolding nature of your own consciousness. And when you wake tomorrow, you will carry pieces of that exploration with you, quietly, gently, woven into your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your understanding of who you are.